Morning arrived with the sound of notification alerts echoing through the mansion. Every servant seemed to know what had happened before breakfast. Every executive arriving for meetings had already seen the edited video. Naomi walked into the dining room wearing a fresh navy dress, her bruised cheek lightly covered, her posture straight. The conversation stopped. Era smirked as she pushed her phone across the table. "Congratulations," she said. "You're famous." Naomi glanced at the screen. Thousands of comments. Some mocked her. Some called her a gold digger. Some insisted she deserved worse. She calmly pushed the phone back. "I hope you enjoyed your entertainment." Madame Kang folded her napkin. "You still have the confidence to speak." "I still have my dignity." Madame Kang's eyes narrowed. "Dignity is earned." Naomi met her gaze. "So is respect." The room became uncomfortably quiet. Before another word could be spoken, the butler announced a visitor. "Mrs. Yoon has arrived." Naomi frowned slightly. "Who is Mrs. Yoon?" Madame Kang smiled for the first time that morning. "The woman who's going to teach you how to stop embarrassing this family." An hour later, Naomi found herself standing in the mansion's formal reception room before 6 wealthy women invited specifically to witness her humiliation. Mrs. Yoon circled her slowly. "Walk." Naomi walked. Again. She did. Mrs. Yoon adjusted her glasses. "Pour tea." Naomi served every guest with steady hands. "Bow." Naomi bowed gracefully. Mrs. Yoon switched to Korean, speaking rapidly. Without hesitation, Naomi answered in fluent Korean. The instructor blinked. She deliberately asked difficult questions about traditional customs. Naomi answered every one. Madame Kang's smile slowly disappeared. Finally, Mrs. Yoon turned toward her. "I don't understand." "What don't you understand?" Madame Kang asked impatiently. "Mrs. Kang, your daughter-in-law has studied very seriously. So, she performs every custom correctly." Madame Kang's expression hardened. There must be something wrong. Mrs. Yoon shook her head. "No." She looked directly at Naomi. "You worked very hard." Naomi smiled politely. "I wanted to honor my husband's culture." The guests exchanged quiet looks. For the first time, doubt entered their minds. Perhaps the stories about the foreign wife had not been entirely true. Before anyone could ask more questions, Madame Kang dismissed everyone. As the guests departed, one elderly woman deliberately paused beside Naomi. She whispered softly, "Do not lose yourself trying to earn acceptance from people who decided long ago never to give it." Naomi thanked her. Those words stayed with her long after the cars disappeared through the front gate. That evening, Unja quietly entered Naomi's room carrying fresh towels. "They're nervous," she whispered. "Who?" "Madame Kang and Minesio." Naomi looked up. "Why?" "Because today's lesson failed." Unja placed a small key on the table. "I also heard something else." Naomi picked it up. "The study." Unja nodded. "Madame Kang keeps important company files in the lower cabinet." "How do you know?" "I've cleaned that room for 28 years. Naomi waited until after midnight. The mansion fell silent. She slipped into the hallway. Every step reminded her of nights growing up above Uncle Isaac's gym in Chicago. He always taught her that preparation defeated strength. Never rush. Never panic. Never leave evidence. She reached the study. The key turned smoothly. Inside, moonlight spilled across polished shelves filled with company awards and family photographs. Naomi ignored them. She unlocked the lower cabinet. Inside sat several thick folders. One immediately caught her attention. Confidential. N. Brooks. Her heartbeat quickened. She opened it. Wire transfers. Bank statements. Approval forms. Every page carried her name. Every signature was fake. Someone had spent months creating the illusion that she had stolen millions of dollars from Kang Maritime. Naomi carefully photographed every document. Halfway through the file, another name appeared repeatedly. Attorney Choi Sang-wook. She photographed that too. Then she reached the final page. Her eyes widened. The documents were scheduled to be presented during the annual shareholders meeting. Not before. Not after. Exactly then. They want to destroy me publicly, she whispered. A voice suddenly echoed from the hallway. Who's there? Naomi immediately switched off her phone. Footsteps approached. Heavy. Steady. She quietly closed the cabinet and slipped behind the large curtains beside the window. The study door opened. Mr. Beck, the security supervisor, entered carrying a flashlight. He looked around carefully. For several long seconds, Naomi barely breathed. Mr. Beck walked directly toward the cabinet. He checked the lock. Satisfied, he turned around and answered his phone. Yes, he whispered. It's secure. A pause. No, she doesn't suspect anything. Another pause. I'll keep watching her. Naomi's eyes narrowed. So Unja had been right. Someone was monitoring every move she made. Mr. Beck left the room. Naomi remained hidden another full minute before quietly slipping back into the hallway. When she finally reached her bedroom, she immediately called the number from Michael Okoro's voicemail. The call connected after 2 rings. Ms. Brooks. This is Naomi. A warm voice answered. I've been hoping you'd call. I think someone is trying to frame me. Silence. Then Michael spoke calmly. Tell me everything. For nearly 30 minutes Naomi explained the dinner, the edited video, the fake documents and the hidden files. Michael listened without interrupting. When she finished, he sighed. Your father always said patience wins battles that anger loses. Naomi smiled faintly. That sounds like him. There is something else you need to know. I'm listening. Your father didn't leave you debt. He left you leverage. Naomi frowned. What does that mean? It means Daniel Brooks invested in a small shipping company almost 20 years ago. So, that company eventually became part of Kang Maritime. Naomi sat upright. What are you saying? I'm saying you already own shares. She stopped breathing. How many? I don't want to discuss numbers over the phone. Why not? Because if anyone is watching you, they must never know what you truly possess. Naomi looked toward her bedroom door. For the first time, she noticed a faint shadow beneath it. Someone was standing outside. The floorboard creaked. Then the shadow slowly moved away. Naomi lowered her voice. They're listening. Michael's tone immediately changed. Good. What? Let them think you're frightened. Naomi understood instantly. She smiled. They've underestimated me before. And they'll do it again, Michael replied. That's exactly how we're going to beat them. If you're already wondering whether Naomi should trust Jun-ho after everything that's happened, let me know in the comments. And if you're enjoying the story so far, don't forget to like this video and subscribe, because the biggest betrayal is still waiting just around the corner. The next morning, the mansion felt strangely peaceful. That alone made Naomi suspicious. Madame Kang greeted everyone with an unusual smile. Minesio hummed softly while scrolling through her tablet. Era, who usually couldn't resist another insult, barely looked in Naomi's direction. It was too quiet. Naomi poured herself coffee without saying a word. Jun-ho entered moments later. His eyes met hers briefly before he sat beside her. He looked exhausted. His tie was crooked, and dark circles rested beneath his eyes. He hadn't slept. Neither had Naomi. Madame Kang folded her newspaper. The board has scheduled an emergency strategy meeting this Friday. Jun-ho nodded. I know. I expect every member of this family to present a united front. No one answered. Madam Kang looked directly at Naomi. Especially you. Naomi calmly buttered a slice of toast. I wasn't aware I had become part of this family. Madam Kang's smile vanished. Before she could respond, Mr. Beck entered carrying several envelopes. The invitations have arrived. He handed one to every family member. When he reached Naomi, he hesitated. Madam Kang noticed immediately. You may leave hers. Mr. Beck obeyed. Naomi opened the envelope. It was an invitation to the shareholders gala immediately after the annual board meeting. Every major investor in Asia would attend. Every news outlet covering business would be present. Naomi smiled to herself. So this was where they planned to destroy her. Exactly as the forged documents had suggested. That afternoon, Unja found Naomi arranging flowers in the courtyard. You were right, Unja whispered. They're preparing something. Naomi continued trimming a rose stem. What did you hear? Attorney Choi arrived this morning. Did anyone see him? He entered through the underground garage. Naomi nodded slowly. What else? They've prepared a presentation. What kind? Unja looked around before answering. One that accuses you of stealing company money. Naomi wasn't surprised. They're moving faster than I expected. Unja frowned. You don't seem frightened. Naomi smiled. Because they're following the exact plan I hoped they would. Late that evening, Naomi received a secure email from Michael Okoro. Attached were scanned copies of documents her father had signed nearly 20 years earlier. She opened the first page. Daniel Brooks. Shareholder. Founding investment certificate. She stared silently. Her father had invested money every single month. Small amounts. Sometimes only a few $100s. Sometimes less. Michael called moments later. Your father believed ports and shipping would connect the world. Naomi smiled sadly. He used to tell me ships carried more than cargo. What did he say they carried? People's futures. Michael laughed softly. Then he was right. He paused. I've finished tracing every merger. And the shares now belong to you. Naomi swallowed. How valuable are they? Very. Enough to matter? Michael became unusually serious. They matter far more than anyone in Seoul realizes. Before Naomi could ask another question, another email arrived. Michael had forwarded internal market reports. Kang Maritime stock had fallen almost 18% since the scandal video reached international media. Investors were nervous. Banks were asking questions. Competitors were circling. Fear was spreading. Michael spoke again. Panic changes markets. Naomi studied the numbers. And frightened people sell. Exactly. For the first time since arriving in Korea, Naomi began thinking not like a victim, but like an investor. Meanwhile, Junho stood alone inside his office staring at security footage from the dining room. Not Era's edited version. The original recording. He watched his mother slap Naomi. He watched himself stand. Then hesitate. Then sit back down. His hands trembled. Someone knocked. Come in. His longtime assistant entered carrying another folder. Sir. What is it? I found something unusual. He opened the folder. Electronic approval records. His digital signature appeared on several overseas transfers. Transfers he had never authorized. When were these approved? They weren't. What do you mean? They were added remotely. Junho's expression hardened. Who had access? The assistant hesitated. Only 3 people. My mother, Attorney Choi, and Vice President Min Seo. Junho slowly leaned back. The room suddenly felt smaller. For the first time, He realized Naomi might have been telling the truth all along. Not only about the abuse, but about something much bigger hiding inside the company. That night he confronted Min SEO. She was alone in the wine cellar reviewing documents. He closed the door behind him. "We need to talk." She barely looked up. "I assumed this was coming." He threw the approval records onto the table. "Explain these." She smiled. "You finally noticed. You forged my authorization. I protected this family. You committed fraud. I prevented scandal. You framed Naomi." Minasio finally looked directly at him. "No. We're preparing to." Junho felt his stomach tighten. Mother approved this? Every step. He stared at his sister in disbelief. "You've lost your minds." Minasio calmly poured herself another glass of wine. "No, brother. We're saving yours." She stepped closer. "If Naomi is blamed, the investigation ends. If the investigation ends, your failed Busan project stays buried." His face turned pale. "You knew. We all knew." She smiled coldly. "You've been protected for 2 years." Junho whispered. "So that's why mother stopped me." Minasio nodded. "She wasn't protecting herself. She was protecting you." Junho stood frozen. His greatest mistake had become the chain keeping him loyal. Minasio softened her voice. "Sign the statement." "What statement?" The one confirming Naomi acted alone. His head snapped upward. "No." She sighed. "Then mother will release every document connected to Busan. Do whatever you want. You'll lose your position." "I deserve to." "You could go to prison." Junho's eyes filled with regret. "Maybe I deserve that too." Without another word, he walked away. Hidden behind the partially opened cellar door, Naomi had heard everything. She hadn't intended to spy. She had been looking for Unja. Instead, she finally learned why Junho had become such a coward. Not because he stopped loving her. Because someone had weaponized his guilt. She quietly stepped back into the hallway before anyone noticed. Her heart felt strangely heavy. Not because she wanted him back, but because she finally understood him. Understanding, however, did not erase responsibility. Later that night, she met Unja in the old greenhouse behind the mansion. Rain tapped softly against the glass roof. "I know everything now," Naomi said. Unja looked concerned. "What happened?" "They've been blackmailing Junho." "So he admitted it." "He never said the words. But I heard enough." Unja remained silent. Naomi looked through the rain toward the brightly lit mansion. "I spent 2 years believing I married a weak man. And now, I think I married a broken one. Does that change anything?" Naomi answered without hesitation. "No. Broken people still choose whether they break others." At that exact moment, Michael sent one final text. "The investor group is ready. Whenever you give the word, we begin buying." Naomi looked up at the glowing mansion one last time. Inside those walls, Madame Kang believed she was preparing the perfect trap. She had no idea that, while she was busy building a case against her daughter-in-law, someone else had quietly started buying pieces of the very empire she believed her family would control forever. If you think Madame Kang has already made the biggest mistake of her life, wait until you see what happens inside the boardroom. Make sure you like this video, subscribe, and tell me in the comments whether Naomi should forgive Junho, or make him watch her take everything he failed to protect. The shareholders' gala began with the sound of a glass shattering across the ballroom floor. Every conversation stopped. Naomi stood near the entrance as a waiter hurried to clean the pieces, but her eyes remained fixed on the platform at the front of the room. Madame Kang was already there. Minasio stood beside her with Attorney Choi, while Era moved through the crowd pretending nothing was wrong. Cameras lined the walls. Investors filled every table. Senior executives whispered nervously about the company's falling share price. It was the perfect stage for a public execution. Naomi's execution. Junho approached her before the presentation began. "We need to leave," he whispered. Naomi studied his face. "You know what they're planning?" "Yes." "How long have you known?" "Since last night." "And you're warning me now?" His expression tightened. "I was gathering proof. You could have told me. I thought I could fix it without frightening you." Naomi almost laughed. "Your family poured food over my head, forged my signature, and prepared to accuse me of stealing millions. What exactly do you think still frightens me?" Junho lowered his voice. "My mother has the Busan files. If I challenge her tonight, she'll release them." Naomi looked directly into his eyes. "And what will you do?" For several seconds, the noise of the ballroom seemed to disappear. Junho finally answered. "I'm going to tell the truth." Before Naomi could respond, Madam Kang stepped toward the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us during a difficult period for Kang Maritime." The room quieted. "Recent stories have damaged our family and threatened the company's reputation. Tonight, we intend to provide complete transparency." Naomi felt Unja's warning echo in her mind. This was the moment. Min SEO nodded toward the technicians. A large screen illuminated behind the stage. Naomi's photograph appeared beside records showing overseas transfers. Gasps spread through the ballroom. Madam Kang continued. "We recently discovered that someone close to this family abused her position and diverted company funds into foreign accounts." Reporters raised their cameras. Era turned toward Naomi with a satisfied smile. Madam Kang's voice became heavier. "That person is my daughter-in-law, Naomi Brooks." The ballroom erupted. Questions flew from every direction. "Mrs. Kang, did you steal the money? Was your marriage part of the scheme? Did your husband know?" Naomi did not move. Madam Kang held up one hand. "We attempted to handle this privately because my son loved her. Unfortunately, Naomi refused to accept responsibility." Attorney Choi approached Naomi with a document. "Sign the confession," he whispered. "Then this ends quietly." Naomi glanced at the paper. "You created these records." "You cannot prove that." "I don't need to." Min SEO stepped beside him. "Sign it, or the entire world will remember you as a thief." Naomi looked toward the screen displaying her name. Then she smiled. "You should have checked who owned the accounts before placing my name on them." Min SEO's confidence flickered. "What?" The ballroom doors opened. Michael Okoro entered with 2 independent auditors, 3 attorneys and representatives from the company's largest institutional investors. Madam Kang's face tightened. "Who allowed them inside?" "I did," Junho answered. He walked onto the stage and took the microphone from his mother. The room fell silent again. "My wife did not steal from Kang Maritime." Madam Kang grabbed his arm. "Think carefully." "I have spent 2 years thinking carefully," Junho replied. "That was the problem." Min SEO stepped forward. "Brother, don't do this." He turned toward the screen. The signatures authorizing these transfers were forged. Mine was forged first. Naomi's name was added later to hide what really happened. He produced copies of the electronic approval records. Attorney Choi began backing away. 2 police officers appeared near the ballroom entrance. Michael joined Naomi and faced the investors. "The overseas accounts did receive money," he explained. "But they were not controlled by Naomi Brooks. They were controlled through companies linked to Vice President Min SEO Kang and Attorney Choi Sang-wook." The screen changed. Bank records appeared beside Min SEO's photograph. Her face drained of color. "This is false." One of the auditors shook his head. We confirmed every transaction. Madam Kang stared at Junho. You would destroy your family for her? Junho's voice broke. No, mother. You destroyed this family because you believed protecting our name mattered more than protecting people. Madam Kang slapped him. The sound echoed through the ballroom. Junho did not move. Naomi stepped between them. Enough. Madam Kang glared at her. You think this makes you powerful? No, Naomi answered. What comes next does. Michael handed documents to the chairman of the shareholders committee. The older man studied them, then stood abruptly. These purchase records are authentic. Whispers swept across the room. Naomi addressed the investors. My father invested in a small shipping business nearly 20 years ago. Through mergers and reinvested dividends, those shares became part of Kang Maritime. Madam Kang shook her head. Impossible. After your scandal lowered the company's value, an investor alliance purchased additional shares. Employees, pension funds and minority stakeholders joined us because they were tired of watching one family treat a public company like private property. Michael displayed the final ownership figures. Together, Naomi's alliance controlled the largest voting bloc in Kang Maritime. Era's phone slipped from her hand. Min Seo stumbled backward. Madam Kang gripped the edge of the stage. You planned this. Naomi looked at her calmly. You taught me to. Police officers moved toward Min Seo and Attorney Choi. Min Seo panicked. Mother authorized everything. Madam Kang spun toward her. Be quiet. She ordered us to frame Naomi. She said the foreign wife would be easier to blame. Cameras captured every word. Attorney Choi tried to run but was stopped near the exit. As officers led Min Seo away, she screamed at Naomi. You think taking our company makes you one of us? Naomi shook her head. I never wanted to become one of you. The emergency shareholders vote took place that same night. Madam Kang was removed from all leadership positions pending investigation. Era was ordered to issue a public apology and surrender the profits earned from the humiliation video to a domestic abuse charity. Junho resigned as chief executive. He accepted responsibility for the Busan losses and agreed to cooperate fully with investigators. Then the shareholders elected Naomi chairperson of the company's restructuring committee. 3 days later, she entered the boardroom carrying a covered serving dish. Madam Kang sat at the far end under supervision, permitted to attend only because she still held a small personal stake. Naomi placed the dish at the center of the table and removed the lid. Soy braised short ribs. Madam Kang's face hardened. Naomi remained standing. The last time I prepared this meal, I spent 6 hours hoping you would accept me. No one spoke. You poured it over my head because you believed humiliation was power. She pushed the dish toward Madam Kang. Today, I didn't bring it to beg for a place at your table. Naomi took the chair at the head. I brought it to remind you that the woman you treated like a servant now decides whether you keep a seat in this company. Madam Kang looked down. For the first time, she had nothing to say. After the meeting, Junho found Naomi alone on the balcony. I'm sorry, he said. Naomi did not turn. I know. I should have protected you. Yes. I still love you. She finally faced him. And part of me may always love the man I met in Chicago. But that man disappeared every time I needed him. I can change. I hope you do. His eyes filled. Does that mean there's still a chance? Naomi shook her head gently. You finally became brave, Junho. But I became free. Their divorce was finalized 1 month later. A year passed. Kang Maritime recovered under new financial controls and transparent leadership. Workers regained lost benefits. Whistleblowers received protection. Unja retired with enough money to live comfortably and spent most afternoons calling Naomi with gossip she pretended not to enjoy. Naomi expanded Uncle Isaac's Chicago gym into a foundation where women learned self-defense, business skills, and financial independence. One evening, she stood before a class of young women preparing for their first training session. A girl near the back raised her hand. "Were you ever afraid?" Naomi smiled. "Of course. Then how did you become strong?" Naomi thought about the slap, the food running through her hair, the forged documents, and the husband who waited too long to stand beside her. "Strength isn't never being afraid," she said. "Strength is deciding fear will no longer make your choices." Applause filled the gym. Later that night, Naomi entered a virtual board meeting from her Chicago office. Behind her, the city lights stretched across the windows. She had entered the Kang mansion as a woman begging to be accepted. She left as a woman who understood she had never needed their permission to rise. And the family who once poured food over her head learned too late that they had not humiliated a helpless outsider. They had awakened the future owner of their company. Was Naomi right to divorce Jun-ho even after he finally defended her? Share your opinion in the comments. Like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more powerful stories about people who rise after being underestimated.